Hi guys, and welcome to episode 3 of the MoneySmart podcast. Where we are joined by Mr. Money Jar. So please may you introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for having me, Oasis. My name's Timi Johnson, also known as Mr. Money Jar, and just like to thank you for inviting me onto the MoneySmart podcast. I'm really excited to be here.
So Timmy's joined us today, and he's quite interested in the Young Enterprise scheme that we're partaking in. So it's a scheme at the moment where you run a business for a year, and in that business you have your finance director, your managing directors, and HR, and in it you're on a journey together, learning the ins and outs of business when you're in the real world. What do you think about that?
I think it's wicked. I actually volunteered with Young Enterprise back in 2019. I went into a school in South London, and we did their Learn to Earn program, and we played board games and did group activities all day. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised at how much financial education and how much business education was part of that. So when you contacted me and let me know that you're doing Young Enterprise, I was like, yeah, I definitely need to speak to you more and find out what that's about. How comes you chose to do it? Why did it interest you?
It's because when I'm older, I'd like to actually run a business myself.
Okay.
With my 2 other brothers.
Okay.
It gives me actual knowledge of how to run a business and everything. When you were at Young Enterprise, were you one of the business advisors? Because we have one ourselves as well.
I wasn't a business advisor, but I'd be interested in that. Maybe we can talk about that afterwards. I was just a drop-in volunteer for the day. So I was one of the people that helped to facilitate the workshops and the games that we were doing on the day.
Would you be open to actually joining back with Young Enterprise there?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a great initiative, and I'm really impressed by you as well. You're 16 years old, so you're the same age as one of my brothers, and I think it's really cool when someone your age knows this early, an idea of what they want to do. I think that's wicked.
Thank you for that. I think you tie in quite well at the moment to actually joining Young Enterprise and everything, because you're actually teaching people about money and everything. You're an ambassador, you said, for the National Numeracy Company. Give us more.
So National Numeracy is a charity, national charity that aims to help people, adults and children, feel good about numbers, feel confident about numbers, and use maths to live their best lives, essentially. And one of the main ways that we do that is through the National Numeracy Challenge, which is a short quiz you can take to kind of find out how you feel about numbers and where you're at skills wise, and then you can build from there. And then there's also National Numeracy Day, which is every May, and Number Confidence Week, which is in November. So I help them throughout the year to reach people through all those different things.
Yeah, talking about that, what do you actually think? Because I was reading on the news about...
I know what you're going to ask me.
Rishi Sunak's plan to try and introduce maths up to 18.
Yeah, I think a few things about that. I think firstly, because I watched Rishi Sunak's press conference in full, I think that if you're going to lay down a policy that's that wide-reaching, then you need to go into more detail about how you're going to implement it, because the next general elections, not for another couple of years, but he's talking about a policy that potentially could span, well over 10 years into the future, if we're talking about young people who are just going into school now. So you need to go into a bit more detail. Also, I noticed that there was a lot of sort of, maybe soft backlash against what he said in terms of learning maths. And I think that the sense I got is that people don't want to learn abstract concepts at school that they don't think are going to help them. Absolutely. People want to learn stuff that fits into their life and helps them in what they're doing. And I think that maths is part of that, but I think numeracy is more important. Feeling confident about using numbers in whatever you do is more important than mathematical concepts. And I would say the same thing about arbitrary science concepts or English concepts or what have you.
So would you say having more education on the math side for actual real life calculation stuff instead of actually what we do with shapes and things that?
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong. So learning is good. learning, if you see learning as a lifelong thing, and not something that you just do for a set amount of time at school, that's a good thing. But yeah, it's got to feed into what you're doing. And from the money perspective, understanding maths can help you with investing, budgeting, getting on the property ladder, managing debt. It can help you with all of those things. So yeah, it needs to be targeted and it needs to be applicable, I guess.
I think that ties in quite well to the actual climate that we're in at the moment with the cost of living crisis. How would you say, as a person who's in quite a bit of bother with like the energy bills and everything, how would you tackle that yourself?
Yeah. The main thing I've done, and that seems to have resonated well with people, is I've reduced the time between when I check in with my money. So I used to have a monthly budgeting habit during normal times. So I get paid on payday, and then shortly after that, I look back at the month and be like, okay, what did I spend money on? Did I overspend in any of these different areas, bills, rent, going out, what have you? And then I make a plan for the month ahead. But with rising prices, and particularly when the prices that are higher are things that you can't really avoid paying for, so like your bills, like your groceries and stuff, I found that checking in on a weekly basis kept me much more on top of it. And you can course correct. 30 days is actually quite a long time to, I don't know, what are we, 29th now? Do you remember what you did on the 29th of December?
No,
Yeah. But like if I asked you about what you did last week Sunday, you're more likely to remember that. So it's exactly the same with spending. So I have a weekly budgeting habit. Actually, on the way up here on the train, I just went in my budgeting app, tagged everything up, and then I look at the week ahead and I'm like, okay, if I overspent or if I need to do any tweaks, what do I want next week to look like? And then you just adjust and adjust and adjust.
you mentioned the budgeting app. Do you know what the best budgeting apps you would suggest are?
Yeah, there's quite a few on the market. There's Snoop, there's Emma. The one that I use is called Money Dashboard Neon. And the reason why I use it is because it's got both a mobile app and a desktop app. So wherever you have an internet connection, you can manage your money. You link all your bank accounts to it, and then you can create categories and stuff. And there's like built-in categories, but there's also custom categories. And you can use it to just keep track of all your money and all your accounts.
With groceries, would you say to like cut back on getting the more like premium brands? Because I know myself and my family, when it comes to the cost of living crisis, if we see like another brand which is, let's say, less expensive but actually has a similar taste, would go for that. Would you suggest that for people as well?
I've been doing that, yeah. And I haven't really noticed the difference in terms of taste. Like baked beans, for example. When I say baked beans, there's like just one brand that comes to all our minds. But I've been going for own brand baked beans on occasion, and it's been fine. And sometimes the branded stuff can cost twice as much. That's like 100% more that you're spending on that item. So anything you can do to keep costs down, it's going to add up.
With energy and like heating, how do you know like any alternatives you see? Because you see people with like blankets, wearing like woolly hats at home and stuff. Would you suggest that, or would you have like another alternative that you'd say?
Yeah, with energy, it's really tricky. I think insulating your home counts for a lot. So like making sure that you like protect against like drafts and like not leaving windows open and common sense stuff and that sort of thing. But yeah, like I've been wrapping up. I've been wearing my scarf in the house. I've been putting on extra hoodies and stuff and wearing socks and that sort of thing. It all sounds super simple, but I guess it's just like the times that we're in. And then I've also, when I've been heating up the house, like doing a blast, letting the room get warm and then turning it off rather than just leaving it on continuously. And I think what another key thing is just recognizing that when it comes to energy usage, electricity is like 3 to 4 times more expensive than gas. So if you're going to choose between either of those, do opt for gas if you can.
So would you say people who have like electric heaters and stuff, would you like try and opt them away from that and stay with like gas?
Using gas central heating
Yeah.
will wind up being cheaper than using an electric heater. But actually, in the flat that I live at the moment, everything's electric. So I put it on, I let the room heat up, and then I switch it off. And then I just do that throughout the day.
And you talk about the actual cost of living in like households and stuff, and like budgeting. Is there like a certain technique you'd use to that, like the 50-20-30 method?
I really like the 50-30-20 principle. I actually avoided it for a long time because I thought it was too prescriptive. But actually, if you view it through the lens of it being a guideline, then it's actually a very, very useful tool and helps you have an idea generally of how much you want to spend. So 50-30-20, for people who don't know, is a budgeting method that says that of the money that you make, aim to spend 50% of it on your needs. So that's your rent, bills, groceries, and that sort of thing. Spend 30% on your wants, going out, eating out, leisure activities, and then save or invest 20%. And I actually bucket paying off debt under saving and investing activities as well. However, if you're in a cost of living crisis, if prices are high, then that 50-30-20 might look more like a 60-30-10, for example. Maybe you might wind up saving a bit less and spending more on your needs. Yeah. Or maybe you'll decrease the wants aspect and spend more on your needs. So you end up with like a 60-20-20 split. It is just a guideline, but what that helps you to do is have different purposes for your income. A lot of times when I was younger, I would just earn money and I would just spend it. I wouldn't even have a plan for how I was going to spend it. Having general guidelines like that can help direct you towards how you want to spend your money.
Yeah, exactly. I think what you summarised there, it's quite like a flexible method.
Yeah.
When you like, say, as you mentioned with the cost of living crisis, prices are going to be high, so you can adjust the percentages. But I feel like in this time as well, if you didn't want to adjust the percentages with like your actual needs, with your wants, you can actually, for example, alcohol and stuff, there's sometimes if the prices are high, you've got to adjust and sacrifices have got to be made sometimes if you're really wanting to like invest and stuff. And I feel on the topic of investing, how do you like invest? How would you advise like the older demographic to invest?
I just want to I'll come to the investing question in a second, but when it comes to like costs, cutting back is one thing, but you can only cut back so much. I think cutting back also needs to be balanced with, if you can, seeking ways to increase your income. And for many of us, that's going to be through our primary source of income, which is our job. And when it comes to like the place where you work, you generally can increase your income by getting a promotion or by moving job. And I think when I speak to people, there's a lot of almost like, oh, I need to give up another thing and another thing, and you're just cutting back and cutting back. And it's like, no, I think everyone has valuable skills. Everyone has something to offer and can do the cutting back piece whilst also trying to increase their income at the same time. So they don't have to cut back on everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And for example, what you're doing here, the MoneySmart podcast, could provide an income stream for you down the line if you stick at it and if you want to do that. You know, podcasts are regularly sponsored by people if the content on the podcast is useful.
Would you say with like you say about mainstream income, would you advise people to get like passive incomes then as well?
I try not to use the term passive income because if you're making money, then there needs to be work being done by someone somewhere. What you can do is you can create an income stream that's scalable. So that means that your income isn't tied to the amount of hours that you're working in the day. is actually something where you're creating once and then selling multiple times. Content is very good for that. For example, you record one podcast episode and then it can be listened to once, or it can be listened to thousands and thousands of times, and then you'll be paid a sponsorship fee based on the number of plays or downloads or something. Like products as well. Like you make once, sell it multiple times, particularly digital products. So yeah, like just wanted to talk about the income piece, because I didn't want to just be like, yeah, just eat cream crackers and just sit in your house without the heating on. But when it comes to investing, how can the older demographic invest for their children, right?
Yeah.
There's two main ways. Have you heard of the junior ISA before?
Yes, my dad mentioned it to me.
Yeah. So the junior ISA is, as the name suggests, the junior version of an ISA account, and you can save £9,000 per tax year, tax-free, into one. And the tax year runs from April to March, and then that allowance resets.
And if anyone doesn't know what ISA actually stands for, it stands for Individual Saving Account.
That's it.
So I think with them, they're very good. You hear a lot of parents actually investing in ISAs for their children. With the tax-free element, why do you think that's so important, the tax-free part of it?
And just on your point about parents, is parents, grandparents and guardians too. So it's a great option for, Christmas presents and birthday presents and that sort of thing. The tax-free element is important because the idea behind the ISA is that if you can use up the limit every year, then in the beginning, the amount of interest you're like, let's say you max it out in the first year, that's interest you're being paid on the £9,000. But if you were to max out a child's junior ISA for 10 years, say, if you're fortunate enough to do that, then you'd be earning interest on 90k. So that's going to be a lot more. And then when that junior ISA matures into an adult ISA and they continue to contribute to it, once they get to a kind of a later life stage, they have this huge, enormous sum of money which they're earning interest on, and all of that interest is tax-free because it's been built up over time. So that's why the tax-free element's important. It adds up over time.
So would it be better to start earlier, even if it's like a small amount? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. When it comes to saving, investing, it's actually time that does a lot of the heavy lifting. There are loads of examples you can see talking about compound interest, where, you're familiar with compound interest?
Yeah.
So where each additional year that you invest for gives you're earning interest on the previous year's interest, and it just the graph is like that. It just hockey sticks over time.
What would you suggest with like parents who actually don't have that at the moment, but actually want to build it through like investing to be able to save some for like for example, when their children go to uni and they want to actually help with their debts that they're going to have after? Because we see at the moment, I think you've heard that uni, the income that you start paying back your actual uni debt is decreasing to about 25k, if I'm right. And then you've got to pay it over a longer 40 years now, I think. And I feel like parents are going to more be wanting to help them with the debt because of that.
Yeah. The thing about the student loan system is I think it's really confusing, and unfortunately unnecessarily so. So even though it's called a student loan, it's a very different situation to like the US, where you have an actual loan that you need to, like, you leave uni in debt and there's an actual loan you need to pay off. In the UK, a student loan functions much more like a student tax, where, like, if you look at income tax, for example, there's an amount of money that you earn that you don't pay any income tax on, and then once you cross that threshold, around about 12.5k, you start to pay income tax on different tax bands as you go up. That's the same thing with student loan. You pay the 9% once you cross the threshold. If you never cross the threshold, you never pay that 9%. And after 30 years, that debt is actually wiped. It doesn't feature on your in your credit history in the same way as, say, a personal loan or a credit card would. So what's actually far more important is the amount of money that you have left after the student loan has been deducted from your pay. In much of the same way national insurance is deducted from your pay and income tax is deducted from your pay.
Would you know like the actual amounts that it increases by as your like income increases above 25k, or is that a bit of a grey area?
It's a flat 9%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Talking about that with investing and stuff, how would you suggest post-uni life they should invest to like grow their income as they're working?
I just wanted to answer another question about the. Sorry to do this, all your questions.
Fine.
I just don't want to leave anything out. So we're talking about how the older demographic can invest. The other thing to be aware of is the junior pension.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a £3,600 limit, and it functions much like an adult private pension. You can just open it for a little one. Again, you max it out every year. Then when they turn 18, it matures into an adult private pension, and then they can access that money at the pension age, which at the moment is 55 years old. It's going to go up to 57 by 2028. And to be honest, for babies being born now, or probably that age of access will probably go up and up and up. But that's again another way to put money away early and just let it compound over time.
Sorry, what is actual pension? Because I'm not really aware.
What's a pension?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Explaining a pension to a 16-year-old for the first time. So a pension basically is a long-term investing account which you pay into over the course of your working life normally. And the idea is that as you work, you pay into your pension pot, and that money's then invested. And then when you come to retire, you have this hopefully bigger sum of money that you can use to live off when you're either not working or working less. And if you start a job and you are aged over 22 and you earn over 10k, then your company has to legally open one for you, and then you put some money in, the government puts some money in the form of what's called tax relief, and then your employer puts some money in as well. And a lot of employers will actually, there's a minimum amount they legally need to put in, but there are a lot of employers who, if you put in more, then they put in more. So you get free money from them, albeit that you can't access at the time, but that you can access it down the line. And it's a big source of household wealth in this country, pensions.
So is it essentially like the fund, like a large sum of money that you receive once you like retire or like are unwell and unable to work?
So mainly when you retire, yeah. And the age of access at the moment is 55. But you don't have to take it at 55. That's just when you can first sort of take it. And people are being encouraged to save into pensions because we're living and working longer than ever before. So it's a way of ensuring that people save towards their futures.
Absolutely, I think that's quite first I've just discovered it myself. I think that's quite a good avenue to like build up money for when you retire. Talking about saving and stuff, and like in the current climate at the moment, the cost of living, I feel like people are getting into a lot of debt and stuff, and like there's not enough, I don't feel there's enough awareness about charities and stuff. Like with Manito ourselves, we're looking to donate all our profits to like Step Change and stuff.
Oh, wicked. I love Step Change. I've worked with Step Change. I think they're a great charity if you're struggling with debt. There's also Citizens Advice. They're another great organisation who you can call them, just pick up the phone to them and be like, how does this financial thing work? Yeah. And they'll speak to you. And with the charities and these organisations, you can get free debt advice, and they can also, if you're in serious problem debt, they can intervene and speak to your creditors on your behalf.
So to actually gain our profits, I know we're doing a podcast and stuff and we've just started, but we're actually doing a saving koala, which you can just see over here.
A saving koala?
It's so the actual idea of it is we have the koala, there's little tokens, and then you put the tokens in for like if the child does a chore or like does something good.
All right.
Then when it builds up, you give them like a reward, say chocolate or something like that, and it builds a concept in their mind for everything that they do good or like some work or something, they get a reward for it.
Okay, why a koala?
It was a bit. It was like we tried to go for like a gender neutral animal, but at the same time, it was just one that just came to our mind as we thought would attract kids.
I like it.
Would you
Saving koala.
would you buy one yourself? Is the question for like if you had a child or something.
Would I? Yeah. So as a way of kind of tracking progress and like incentivizing good habits.
Yeah, it's just because we don't want to like as in try and create an idea of like teach people about money. It's more about how to say it, the behaviors, getting the behaviors in early.
Yeah, yeah, I'll try it. I don't have children, but yeah, I would definitely give it a go. I have friends who are like starting to have children now, so the main thing that's coming to mind for me is like I would just need to give it to them and see how they respond to it, because like lots of children are different. I think what could be cool is like you have your physical saving koala, but having like a digital koala as well, like a little character.
Yeah. We're also gonna release a book and an activity. The activity is going to be virtual, where you can actually get these behaviours in with different little activities, and the book's going to be about the koala and different characters, and like the behaviours and like hinting about money and stuff. Like, what would you think that book should consist of and stuff for the younger demographic?
Activities to promote positive money habits.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of savings challenges. So you could almost have, like a sheet, and if you imagine how like a month looks like on the calendar, like 30 or 31 blank spaces for people to write down how much they're saving every day, and then a total amount at the bottom. And I also like vision boards too. So an activity where you can write down something you're saving towards. It could be a pair of headphones, a pair of trainers, and just write about how you're going to save up for it, how you're going to reach that financial goal.
With a book as well that we're going to do, which is separate to the actual activity sheets and stuff, what would you think that should like consist of if you're like trying to target behaviours to do with like saving money? So a behaviour to give an example of is not being complacent and stuff, and actually being disciplined. So you say at my age you have a bank account, you have your saving money, say you're at Waitrose with your friends, not spending like they're spending.
When I think about the stuff that has stayed with me since I was a child, I really like kind of fables and stories that use animals. So I think it's like the ant and the grasshopper, for example. Are you familiar with the ant and the grasshopper? Yeah. So I remember reading about that when I was a child, and just thinking I was reading about animals. But it's actually, now that I've gone a bit older, I realise it's actually a very simple but powerful story, which is just like you should just prepare for the future. So I would stick with storytelling. Stories resonate with people way more than facts and figures, and use simple, memorable characters, which is why I think the koala is also a brilliant idea. It just rolls off the tongue, light-hearted, fun.
We see also like banks doing these. I'm not sure if you've seen like HSBC, you do actual worksheets, and you've got NatWest doing like these different games. What do you think of them? Because I feel like as you're doing yourself, for the younger generation, as we grow up and we're going to be in this environment, in the workings of, how do you feel like that's contributing?
I mean, I would almost flip it, and I think what the different steps that banks are taking to engage young people, I think is great. I think it's brilliant that they're doing that. But something that I'm very keen on is actually listening to you listening to young people and hearing about what resonates with you, because I'll tell you a story. Like the other day I was on YouTube and I saw this video, which was a looking back on a news broadcast from 2001, talking about a new mobile phone technology called texting. And there's like, oh yeah, texting is taking the world by storm. Let's talk to these kids about like what they think about texting. And then you had this little boy, and it's like, oh, I love texting. I send like 15 texts a day to my friends. It's awesome. And then they speak, and then they get this kind of so-called like expert at the time. They're like, and he's like way older than them, and he's like, oh, so what do you think is going to happen with? No, that's it. The broadcast then talks about picture texting. It's like, will picture texting become the next big thing? Yeah. And then they're like, let's speak to this expert about picture texting, and he's like, yeah, do you know what? It's never going to take off. Like, and then in the space of like, what are we, 20 years?
Yeah.
You've got Snapchat, you've got Instagram, so I want to hear from people that are your age about where do you think the world is going to go in the next 20 years time? What do you think is going to resonate with young people? Because the reason why part of the reason why I think texting took off is because you had this group of young people who really loved it, who then grew up with it and continued using it. So if I could ask you, how would you want to learn about this stuff? Would you want to do a paper activity worksheet? Would you want an app on your phone? Would you want an in-person experience? Based upon what you see, what do you think would resonate?
If I was looking overall, the most accessible would be an app, but for me personally, it'd be more in person.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I see the actual word going now is with AIs and everything, because all my friends around me, we see all these AI things we think are really cool.
Mm.
And actually in schools now we get taught, like, you can do A-level computer science and stuff.
Okay.
Learn about coding and everything. And
Yeah.
I feel like the world just pushing towards technology constantly now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So maybe, I mean, you got Chat GPT,
Yeah.
which is, doing what it's doing right now.
Hit 1 million in 5 days, I think, users.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't manufacture that.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe in the future you just type something into a search box and it just, that's how you learn. That's how you incentivize behaviors. No, yeah, it's just no one really knows where the world is gonna go. But I think the people who have more of an idea are the younger generation, because you're going to be the people that are going to use that stuff going forwards.
The only worry I'd have with it going to all technologies, all these like different, like you see these scammers like evolving with like the banking system and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the only problem that I think needs to improve a bit before anything happens.
Yeah. Even like on social, I have so many duplicate accounts. I get just tons of DMs every week going, did you message me this? Was this you? And I have to be like, sorry, no. Please send them an aubergine emoji and report and block.
I think social media as well, it's about looking at the correct people. Like some people who sell these like Forex trading stuff.
And crypto stuff, yeah.
Yeah, you don't really want to get there because they're teaching you. But they claim to be teaching you, but they're interested in getting your money.
Yeah.
Which I think that's why we actually reached out to you, because you don't sell a course, but you actually do your teaching for free, which I think is amazing, first of all. And everything you're doing is having a positive impact. Like
thank you.
You've been on ITV, BBC, and the LBC. I just think the awareness you're creating is just magnificent.
Oh, thank you, man. That really means a lot. A lot of my work, to be honest, is quite solo. And I'm always worrying about, am I helping? Is
Definitely.
What I'm saying relevant and stuff? So it truly means a lot to speak with people like yourself and actually to hear that I'm having a positive impact. I have a lot planned for this year, and I feel that I've barely scratched the surface in terms of what I want to do. And indeed the industry, there are loads of great creators out there making content about money, and it's all very new. So it could go in any direction.
I feel like with the making money, everyone's orientated about making, especially my age, quick money. Everyone's here, quick money, want to day trading, quick money, everything. But we need actual people like you who can actually guide us, because a lot of people you have to pay to do that. But if you have people like Instagram and stuff, because our demographics so orientated towards social media, if there's people on there guiding them,
Yeah.
they're going to be a lot safer.
So what are the top apps that's social media apps that you'll say for young people?
I'd say Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram is the main one.
Okay.
And then Be Real's coming up, and Snapchat. They're the main three, I feel.
Be Real, Snap. Yeah, I didn't want to assume, but I thought you might say TikTok.
TikTok, that went out of my brain, but TikTok's more when you're bored, you're just gonna go on there and just flick through it.
Right.
A lot of my friends do it though. A lot of my friends use it, but the problem I find with it is quite addictive. Like, because of the algorithm stuff, you'll say you're going there for 10 minutes, but then it end up being like an hour and stuff.
Yeah.
But that is growing heavily, and it's quite an easy way to get actually a lot of, like, build your brand essentially.
Good for visibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I like Be Real. I like how it's just so simple.
Yeah.
And again, you can't really force people to use a platform. So if something's becoming popular, that means it's resonating with people. That means that you're doing something right. What about YouTube?
YouTube, I don't see a lot of my friends using that. I feel like TikTok's taking it over.
Mm-hmm.
I use it quite a bit, but I hear them using it, before you go to bed or something. They'll just be watching a video casually. Mm-hmm. But I like YouTube a lot because it's like a free education essentially. Because I can search up about something that I'm not quite sure about, watch a video on it. Like in my A-level studies, chemistry, I don't know something, I'll go watch something like Cognito on YouTube, free, go through everything. That's why I feel like it's an amazing platform. And I feel like it's a lot more safer than TikTok, to be honest, because you can put like restrictions on it. But with like TikTok, they've only recently introduced that.
Are you familiar with opportunity cost?
Yeah, I learned that in business.
Yeah. I think, I don't mean to like give you unsolicited advice or anything, but I think what's so exciting about like the stage of life you're at now is if you did something, if you followed your interests and you just did something for 10 years, you'd be 26 and you'd have 10 years of whatever that thing was under your belt, whether it's the Monito podcast or the business you want to do with your brothers and stuff. Yeah. And so definitely make time to have fun. Have fun, see your friends, do hobbies, whatever the case may be. But also, like, just be aware of stuff that is designed to like suck away your time. Like the opportunity cost of spending an hour extra on TikTok. And you're not like this at all because you're here on a weekend running a project. But the opportunity cost is like you could have spent that time like building something at the same time. Yeah. So and the reason why I say that is because as I've gotten older, I've noticed that like more and more of your time is up for grabs from all of these apps and from all this content and stuff. Mm-hmm. And there's more hours of content in the world than there is time to watch it. So you need to be selective. Otherwise, you'll just be on the stuff forever, you know? So yeah, I would say have fun, enjoy yourself, but use technology on your own terms because it's been designed to suck as much time away from you as possible.
I'm a strong believer in everything in moderation.
Yeah,
so have a balance between it, but essentially, when you're like 16 like me, hobbies are important. My main three are hobbies, sport, and studying. Studying's the first, of course, because A-levels are going to dictate if I go to university and stuff. But I feel like with our phones now, they're addictive, but we've got to have an element of like control, whether that be through, I see some parents putting like time restrictions on certain apps. I feel that that's quite beneficial and just any way to just tackle it.
Time restrictions, but also like, again, I sound like such an oldie, but like when I was a kid, there were no mobile phones. There was no internet really in the house, and your phone was a landline that was in a certain room in your house, and it was just there. And if you needed to use a phone, you had to get up and walk to the phone and pick it up and like dial it and stuff. Now it's the other way around. Your phone can be with you absolutely everywhere, with unlimited access to the internet and unlimited access to content and that sort of thing. So you can restrict your app usage on the phone. But something that I do is I have a phone stand in my flat, and I keep my phone plugged into the phone stand most of the time. So that just means that I'm not, if I want to use it, I'll need to go to that place. I'm trying to replicate what it was like back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll have like certain point in the day where I'll allow myself to mindlessly scroll or whatever. But when I need to work, the phone is over there, because I just know that once I'm on it, you get down that rabbit hole.
I guess there's pros and cons to the generation of just like technology and everything, because we can get advice and everything easier, but then there's a lot of bad things on the internet and everything now.
Everything is just more.
Yeah.
There's more good stuff, but there's more unhelpful stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that just summarizes my whole like age group about technology and everything. But I think that ties in quite well too, because there's so many like different people around now, like the internet and stuff. Who are your actual role models that you actually are like influenced by?
Yeah. Who am I influenced by? I'm not saying this because you invited me on here, but I'm very inspired by people like you.
Mm-hmm.
Young people who want to make a difference, who have an idea of what they want to do. So keep doing what you're doing. You do remind me a lot of my brother. He's like very ambitious as well, and I think is wicked. Anyone online who talks about like ways to improve your health, I'm a big follower of that. For example, I've been getting into the work of a speaker and author called Matthew Walker. He talks about sleep and like just its importance in health, and he's got a really great TED talk on it. Obviously there are tons and tons of financial creators, way too many to name here, that I follow, and that like if you go on my feed, you'll see I've worked with many of them, I've been on podcasts with many of them, so they inspire me. I'm very inspired by Warren Buffett. Are you familiar with him? Yeah. I've actually read all of his annual letters. Actually, no, I've read all of his annual letters up until the year 2019. I need to catch up on the 2020 and 2021 ones.
Yeah.
But he's a really great person to read from, not just because he has loads of money, and not because he's an investor, but he's also lived for a long time. So he's in his 90s now, and he's seen everything. You know, he's a bit like, I guess, like the Queen or something. Like he's just lived through a lot of different things, and so you can get this kind of whole history lesson in the world. So yeah, my big three things, my big three pillars in life are health, wealth, and happiness. So anyone who talks about those things and how to improve those things inspires me.
I think that's an amazing three to be like reflective on, and just looking at where the way you put it. Would you suggest with like books and everything, are they more important to read, or would you say articles online?
I'm a big fan of books. A habit that I'm trying to keep up with this year is to see, it's not always easy, but to see if I can read for 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day, you know, you could easily read a book a month. And if you read the 12 best books in your field, I'm talking about non-fiction books here, but like fiction is cool too. But like just for learning, if you read the top 12 books per year, and then like maybe you reread a couple, that could change your life. The thing about books is articles are good, and there are actually loads of books which could just be an article. It's just like, it's actually quite a lot of bloat. But the good thing about books is there's like the nitty gritty details that you can't get in an article, or you maybe can't get from a podcast or a talk, that are in the book. And I then take that information and then I teach it to people. They're like, wow, like how do you like know that stuff? And it's like, well, it's just in the book. You just need to be able to read the whole book. And and pull out those bits. So I'm a big fan of books still. I've seen some content saying like, this is why I don't read books and stuff, but I think it's still one of the most efficient ways to convey, in many cases, years and years of learning that someone has done into like a relatively short space of time.
I feel like the people who say they don't want to like read books and actually try and justify it, I feel like they say that because they feel like with a phone it's more accessible. With a book, you actually got to go find it.
Yeah, I think, people learn in different ways as well,
Yeah.
you know? Some people are book people, some people are audio book people, some people prefer to listen to a podcast episode. I think you should do what works for you. But for me personally, I would credit a lot of the knowledge I have and a lot of the knowledge that I have that other people don't have from just reading.
Yeah.
And an hour a day is quite a long time. If you consider the fact that you probably spend like 7-8 hours working, was it like an hour per meal time?
Yeah.
And then you need to like rest and stuff. An hour is actually quite a chunk of time. But if you read 10 pages a day for a month, that wouldn't take you an hour, but that could get you through a non-fiction book of 300 pages, you know?
Absolutely.
And just try and be consistent with it.
Yeah. So you mentioned books and your role models. Do you have like an inspirational quote that you actually live by?
Come with the big questions. The one that's coming to me at the moment is, you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want.
Why would you say that's the one that you live by?
Because I think it helps you to focus in on stuff. I really do believe you can have anything you want in life. I really do believe that. I think if something that you genuinely want, and like obviously assuming that you don't die unexpectedly in the process, but if there's something that you want and you put in time and effort, and then there's always a little bit of luck as well, you will generally move towards that thing and get that thing. So recognizing that you can achieve pretty much anything, but you can't achieve, there's not enough hours in the day to achieve every single thing, I think helps keep you focused. So my thing is money. That's the thing that I've, like financial education, that's the thing I've chosen to focus on. I used to have so many different ideas. I wanted to do so many different things, but it can be quite difficult to achieve when you're spread too thin. So I like having the focus. And then for all of the other, back in the day, I would have loved to become like a pro, like an esports gamer or something. But I recognize that I can't do what I'm doing now and be like the top FIFA or COD player or something. So it also it also makes me like cheerlead other people that are like smashing it in their fields as well.
So are you trying to say narrow it down to like a specific field and then have a focus on that to achieve what you want in that? Or are you trying to aim at something else?
I think the quote inspires me to stay focused and to be grateful for what I have, rather than trying to go after the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, which is how I used to be.
So did this quite like a learning curve for you when you discovered it?
And I think life is just you're not going to always know what you want to do in the beginning, or you'll have an idea about what you want to do and then that will change. That's fine. But I think life is kind of like, you try a bunch of stuff, and some of it works and some of it doesn't, and then you like narrow it down, and then you try more of that stuff, and then some of that work goes well, and you just like keep following what you're interested in, what's fun, and what's going well. Mr. Money Jar is my second company. I had a company before, and it didn't work out.
I guess everything's a learning curve.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure and a brilliant insight for me as a 16-year-old.
No worries.
So that's been episode 3 of the MoneySmart podcast.